What's up, guys? It's Ian here, back today with another video, and today I had a subscriber request this topic, which is why I'm back today so soon, a bit sooner than my normal video tempo. And thank you for coming and joining me in this video, and thank you for the video requests and topic requests. They do help me put out more videos. Since, sometimes it feels like I'm maybe spinning my wheels and saying things I've already said, but when I do get a topic request, it does help me at least reinforce the idea that somebody wants me to talk about this topic. And today's topic is, am I a good person? Are you a good person? And then I did a bit of reading and research, because I know in the last video I talked a lot about, Christianity, Buddhism, end of the world, becoming a vegetarian, and other related topics. And I did some reading to sort this out a little bit. So I always thought that a reverend or a minister was a lay person. So basically, in Christianity and Buddhism, you have different categories. You have members of the, clergy or ordained people, and then you have lay people. Apparently, monks, reverends, and ministers, they all go in the same category, although reverends and ministers, etc., they're in this middle category where they retain their ability to basically live a normal life. They are more hyper aware of all the tenets of the religion that they're propagating, but they haven't fully sacrificed everything to the extent that a monk has. So in both Buddhism and Christianity, a monk basically gives up, I don't want to say everything, they can still, they still eat food and have water, right? But they give up much of their worldly possessions. They give up the ability to have wives and children. They give up the ability, various things. In some of my reading, I did read that apparently Jesus didn't necessarily promote vegetarianism. It seems as if Jesus may have eaten fish himself, so I might have gotten that wrong in the last video. A lot of people say he was a vegetarian, though. Some people suggest he may have eaten lamb. I don't know if that's true, though, like if there's actually documented evidence of that. And even if there's written evidence of that, it might just be documented in quotations. That could be forged, or it could have been bent. It's possible that he never ate animals. Maybe he only ate fish. We don't know. It's such a long time ago. It's too hard to really know for sure. And the Buddha himself, he did eat animals. Even Buddhist monks, they're allowed to eat animals when necessary, when they're given. From my surface level reading, it would appear as if Buddhist monks are allowed to eat animals if the animal was not specifically slain for them. That gets into a really gray area when you get into factory farming, because I guess every animal that's farmed in a factory is specifically slain for sale. So if an animal is slain for sale and then you buy it, I think if you're just being intellectually honest and follow it to its logical conclusion, it would appear as if you've bought that animal and funded the industry that slayed the animal. So as a result, I would have to at least posit that it would appear as if that animal was slain for you, because you contributed to the industry that caused it to be slayed. And you're kind of like creating a feedback loop, a positive feedback loop, because it's like, oh, if people are buying into this, then we're going to keep selling it, because why not? It's a business, it's an industry. I wanted to talk about the concept of are you a good person? Because in the last video I discussed are you a good person, and in the West we're afforded the opportunity to do so much more than, let's say, like a predatory animal. I don't like calling people low IQ, because I think making fun of people for things you can't change is really low. It's a really low it's not a morally defensible position, because your IQ is largely established by your genetics and potentially your food and educational environment when you were a very small child, even your interactions with parents and the type of language and diction, level of diction that they used when they were raising you. All of these things are going to affect your IQ as an adult. And you could clearly see how if you just ended up as an adult with a really low IQ, and let's say like you didn't have a good food environment, maybe your parents were talking usually using only very simple language, or they weren't native English speakers, so then you went to school and you were never able to fully express your intelligence or fully able to absorb the course material, you're kind of like handicapped, and it's not your fault at all. So I'm not blaming people for being lower IQ, but what I'm getting at is that the smarter you are and the more comprehension ability that you have, the more egregious it probably is to, I guess, continue inflicting harm to the world around you. And I've wrestled with this for many years, and I'm kind of inching slowly inching closer to becoming a vegetarian. I haven't fully committed yet. I haven't bought meat for a while, as I mentioned in the prior video. I'm kind of finishing off the last of my meat reserves that I've purchased over the past, months, and sometimes I buy things like months in advance. I'll buy like dried meats, or I would buy frozen goods, so things last a long time. Anyways, I haven't purchased any meat in at least several weeks, maybe a month. I don't want to give a specific because I haven't written it down, but I'm gradually finishing it off, and I haven't bought it in quite a while, and I'm contemplating giving it up. What I do want to mention is that your awareness affects the level of sin. It's thought this is also something I mentioned in the previous video, why I brought the whole IQ thing into it, and why I figured it was worth mentioning, reverends versus lay people versus monks. Obviously, since both reverends, ministers, and monks, all of those categories of people, none of those are considered lay people. So they're hyper aware of what causes harm, what is selfish versus selfless, your effects on the world. Those people are going to be more hyper aware of the impact they have on the world than your common layperson is. Especially your common layperson who maybe never considered the weight of suffering in the world, or maybe is, through no fault of their own, lower in IQ. Maybe those lay people, the weight of their sin isn't so great, but you could quickly see how the more aware you are, let's say if you're a reverend or a monk or a minister, you would, I guess, if you're still sinning from those positions, your hyper awareness of the nature of suffering and the nature of, I guess, the teachings in scriptures, regardless of what religion you follow, your hyper awareness of scripture means that an equivalent sin committed by somebody who's hyper aware is greater than the sin of a lay person, and greater than that of the sin of an ignorant lay person as well. If you've got a really ignorant lay person, especially somebody who's never read much or considered any of these ideas, maybe their sins are more likely to be forgiven when it comes to be their time of judgment, right? Similar to what I mentioned, like predatory animals, they have no concept. I mean, I'm sure they have a concept of suffering because they fight each other and they get injured, so they know about suffering. I think animals know about suffering. If you step on a cat or a dog's foot or tail by accident, obviously, they jump up. They're like, hey, what are you doing? Like this hurts, right? So animals have a concept of suffering, right? They'll try to escape. Cows, they try to escape, and then you got a cowboy lassoing them, right? So it's like animals try to escape. They have a concept of suffering. They have a concept of self-preservation. So even the lowest IQ humans can still clearly see that there's an aspect of suffering. I guess maybe many people just don't care, right? Because it takes a certain mindset to even be able to care. Maybe a certain level of, I guess, free resources to be able to spare your resources. Because if you're just barely getting by, and let's say your bucket is full, your mental bucket is full, and you're worrying about all these other things in life, then maybe you just don't have the time or the, I guess, the bandwidth to even consider these topics that I've brought up or discussed. But yeah, I just wanted to expand on this topic, and talk about, the level of awareness and how awareness basically, it's not fully deterministic, but your awareness basically tips the scales in terms of the weight of an equivalent action, of how heavily weighted, how heavily sinful an equivalent action may be. Your awareness does tip the scale. And I think the more hyper aware you are of something and that you choose to do it anyways, the punishment will be harsher for you in the end. And I kind of mentioned this in the beginning when I led with the hook, like, am I a good person? Are you a good person? Etc. And maybe I buried it too deep in the video, but I mean, you guys don't know everything I've done in my life. I don't know if I'm a good person. And to be even less agnostic than that, I kind of don't think I'm a good person, because my level of awareness, I mean, maybe I've only reached my current level of awareness in the past, let's say, weeks, months, years, because this whole like potential transition to vegetarianism, it's been a fairly recent series of considerations that have taken place in my mind. But so I've only reached this level of awareness fairly recently. I guess you could maybe argue that my fluid IQ could have been higher in my 20s. I don't really know when it starts to drop off. Some people say that your fluid IQ is the highest when you're a bit younger. But anyways, my level of awareness and I guess accumulation, my accumulated facts and information, my assimilation of information, it's been increasing more and more. Maybe I've forgotten some things, but you could also argue like I know more now than I have ever before in my life, and I've collected more information now. I've definitely forgotten some things, as I mentioned, but I've accumulated more information now than I ever have before. So you could argue that the weight of my actions taking now, if they're negative or sinful actions, are going to be judged more harshly in the end. That's most of what I wanted to say in this video. As a brief aside, I wanted to talk about, I mean, obviously, it seems like the creator of this universe has given us time so that we can perceive our life in a manageable fashion and enjoy it all. But from the perspective of an omnipotent entity, a God, the creator, they would be able to view your life in a snapshot, because if the creator is, existed for billions of years and omnipotent, sees everything, they don't necessarily have to sit down with you and go through like your life review on a point by point basis to know the scale. They know the scale. They could even probably, like, your life could be summed up to a Polaroid, and it's going to be maybe like, it's going to have its peaks and valleys. It's going to have the good and the bad, but I think that the creator knows. And it's interesting, just the concept of time on a human level. It's like we're lucky to be able to perceive time on such a manageable time frame, and not just have your life happen super quickly. Or maybe it would be actually better if it was super slowly. It would seem like you're living a long time, but then if you have suffering, it would also be a long period of anguish. So I mean, that's something to think about. Fighting a sneeze. Oh my God, it's almost gonna come out. I'm sorry, I hope that wasn't super loud. I guess that's everything I wanted to say. Thinking about time scales and the rate at which you accumulate information. Hopefully this gives you something to think about. I don't really consider myself a good person. Like maybe my scalar balance, the blind hand of justice, as they say, it could even be in the negative. Because if you are doing something wrong and you do it over and over again, then all of those actions aren't weighted equally. Because if you're aware that it's wrong, maybe it's actually the value of it is more severe. It's creating a more profound mar on your eternal soul, or a more severe mark on on the balance, which you'll be graded in the end. Yeah, so I've maybe reiterated the same thing 5 times now with different words, and hopefully this was good food for thought. Yeah, am I a good person? I don't know, but I'm still alive as of the making of this video, and I guess I still have time to change and time to try and do good things and try to avoid harm and avoid making the world a worse place. Yeah, it's not only about doing good things, but it's about, I guess, consciously trying to avoid harming others and doing worse in the world. So, you know, a harm reduction approach, you could argue, might even be easier than going around trying to do good, because maybe your ability to do good is limited, or, you know, you aren't afforded the opportunity to do all the things that you'd like. But ultimately, thank you for watching this video. Please comment or message me directly on Instagram. Comment on YouTube any future topic requests, video requests. And again, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.